I think it's important to stress the point that taking steroids is life-changing. When you're in that limelight, in that celebrity status kind of bubble, you can be gone very quick as well. Like a GB gymnast, some of the guys are like going, well, I don't want to go against him on Hang Tough. Like, what? Talk to production, like, what the hell are you doing?
Drawing short straws to see who's got to go, Hello, and welcome back to the Men's Health Built for Life podcast. Today, I am joined by quite literally a giant of a man, Jamie Bigg. Thank you for joining me. How are you doing today, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm stressed from the London traffic, but apart from that, I'm very good. Very good.
It's always such a high energy, aggressive way to start the day, isn't it? Coming into London. I
think if I lived in London, I'd definitely have to have a bike, push bike.
Yeah, it is nice. I don't know why more people don't use them. And then I try and cross a road, and I remember that's exactly why.
Do you know what it reminds me of, though? Have you ever done Zwift?
Yeah.
Zwift racing. It looks like a real-time Zwift race.
I think there should be a sort of Zwift map that is just sort of cutting around London. I think that would be like such high adrenaline.
They're all at the lights and like, we're going to go. We're going to go.
Well, the ones that stop at the lights.
Yeah, for sure.
So for anyone who doesn't know, you're a former firefighter, IFBB pro bodybuilder.
Yep.
But it's fair to say you really made yourself a household name on the iconic television show Gladiators.
Yep.
Let's start just before that. How did you get into training? Which actually, that's probably not going to be just before that, is it? But what initially got you into this world of training, and what did that arc into Gladiators look like?
Yeah. So there's a few things that got me into training. First of all, my uncle was a bodybuilder, not professional, but he was competing. So my first introduction to bodybuilding was when I went round his house with my mum when I was about 13 years old. And he came downstairs in a set of posing trunks. I was like, it's pretty much a thong.
Yeah.
But he's posing in front of my mum in this black thong and he's got incredible physique. And I'm like, right, I've never really seen a physique on this level before, because when would you ever see a man at 13 in a thong? But my mum was like, yeah, you look okay. Your calves need a bit of work. And I was thinking, looks perfect to me. So that was the introduction to like the bodybuilding. I went and seen a few shows. I was invested in the art of like sculpting that physique. And I was always, from then on, more interested in the physique from like an artistic standpoint. The old school bodybuilders like Arnold and Frank Zane and Bob Paris, they was all just like sculptures.
Yeah.
So that's what that drawn me in. But then I got very invested in Arnie and his films. And my nana tells a great story about when she used to babysit for me when I was like 10 years old. That was even before that. My favourite film was Commando.
Yeah.
And she used to babysit me, and I used to watch it on loop like 3 times in one night. So what a rogue film to watch as a 10-year-old. But
I saw something about this recently where someone was saying like, how old are you?
I'm 40.
You're 40, so you're literally 2 years older than me.
I'm older. I'm forgetting how old I am.
That's when you know you're old enough, right?
Yeah.
That our generation, there was like no holds barred in what, like, Predator, that's a perfectly acceptable film for an 8-year-old to watch on repeat. And our parents didn't really, I'm sure some parents out there did, but look, I, like you, grew up on Arnold films that most parents now, I suspect, would think twice about.
I think so.
Anyway, so Commando's your favourite film at the age of 10.
Yeah.
Which explains a lot.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, walking around school with the face paint on. Not quite. And the big knife. No, definitely not. So from then, I joined a gym at 16 after I finished school. The first thing we did at sixth form was I joined a gym with my mate Ben, best friend. And when I joined this gym, I looked around. I was like, there's some big guys in here. And there's a guy bench pressing. I remember it clear as day. There's a guy bench pressing 20 kilo dumbbells. I was like, wow, that's so strong. Like, I went up to pressing 83 kilo dumbbells on incline chest, and my heaviest and my strongest. So to explain that journey from not even being able to do 20s to that. And I think the progressive aspect of bodybuilding, that's what interested me from the outset. I started competing when I was in my early 20s. Then I really realised during the fire service that I wanted to be a bodybuilder more than a fireman. And they used to take the mick out of me in the fire service. It was like, you think you're part-time, mate. You're full-time bodybuilder and part-time fighter. It should be the other way around. And I was like, I know. I got my priorities wrong. But instead of obviously doing a disservice to the general public, I made it my passion to move into bodybuilding. And I bought a gym in 2017. And that was the big move for me then in terms of like becoming a professional bodybuilder. And in 2018, a year later, I achieved my goal. And then just really competed around the world until 2022. And then that's when the opportunity to be a gladiator came about. The show was coming back on TV. I seen the application on Instagram and I was like, I'm 37 years old. Bodybuilding is not an old man's game. And I see people all the time competing in their 50s and 60s, which, great feat, but I didn't want to be that guy. I wanted to start concentrating more on family life and the home life and giving myself back to them more than I had the balance with the professional bodybuilding lifestyle. And I just applied, and the rest is history.
During that period, because you're a bodybuilder, you're a competitive bodybuilder, and just actually really quickly, could you just explain for listeners what it means to become a professional bodybuilder?
So anyone can compete. There's like lots of national federations that you can compete internationally as well as an amateur. You can compete all over the world, but the aim is to get your pro card in the IFBB. So the IFBB is it's like the Super Bowl of bodybuilding. So with that federation, like Premier League football, playing at the highest end, you can go to something called the Olympia, and the Olympia is the Super Bowl, the World Cup final. There are other federations, but the other federations don't have the same prestige as the Olympia. Right, so the IFBB professional, the pro card is what you're chasing as an amateur. And once you get that, you're straight back down to ground zero, working your way back up. And as a tall bodybuilder, I was always working my way up because it was like, you need to be heavier, you need to be bigger. And it's like, when does it stop?
What was it about making the move into Gladiators from bodybuilding that you thought was going to give you more time back to reinvest in? Because into family, into other things you wanted to do. What was it about bodybuilding that was so time consuming that you kind of didn't think would be there?
Yeah. Moving
into this different sort of
bodybuilding at all levels. If you want to become a professional, and if you are a professional, it's 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. You live, eat, sleep, breathe, train, bodybuilding. And I'd done that for the best part of 15 years. And my family had been through that journey with me. I was at one point eating 10,000 calories a day. So the stress on like your digestive system, but also I look back at photos now, and you blind at the time, but I look back at photos now of when I was like my biggest, and I think, wow, I look really unhealthy. And actually, in my own rights, disgusting. Not a fan of the way I looked.
It's so weird how something that is, ostensibly on the surface, as you said yourself, is about aesthetics.
Yeah.
Jumps the shark at some point and becomes, to many people, like quite an unaesthetic thing, right?
Yeah.
It's its own thing. I always think bodybuilding is an extreme sport, right? It took me years to sort of make that connection in my head. And we take so much of how we think about training historically from bodybuilding, right? Because gyms were, that's where it's so mainstream now. It's easy to forget that bodybuilding was one of the only things you did in a gym, right? You played sports, you did your sport. That's a separate thing. But people in gyms were bodybuilders. So we take so much of our training information and diet information from this place that is effectively it's an extreme sport, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And like any extreme sport, it comes with extreme kind of sacrifices and extreme focus on that particular thing. So to answer your question, what I thought I'd get from Gladiators is maybe not the 365 days a year, eating, training, a bit more of a relaxed feel and aspect towards training, a bit, and not as extreme. But what I didn't realise is the balance then had to shift towards other areas that I wasn't used to. So the balance towards family was still smaller than I would have liked.
Yeah.
And it's just a different stress.
Yeah. It's quite funny, really, isn't it? That most people's first intuition wouldn't be that going into something like Gladiators as a gladiator is the thing that you're like, oh, that'll be relaxing for me. There's an irony in that.
Yeah.
So what was that like then? You kind of, you haven't got back that family time that you wanted. Why was that? What was life like in Gladiators?
I think how I explained it was, as a bodybuilder, you live by routine. You wake up at a certain time, you eat a meal at a certain time, and you eat 7 or 8 times a day. You'd train at a certain time, go to bed at a certain time, and you'd segregate time in your schedule to spend with family and go on dates or trips. And then going from something so restrictive and so regimented to having free reign, kind of fantasized about the idea of it, but the reality was it was horrible because I kind of lost I realised that what made me tick, and what I realise now, like 4 years on, what makes me tick is routine. And I think that's where the ADHD diagnosis comes from as well, like the lack of routine and structure. My brain wasn't occupied in a certain way, so it allowed these thoughts of confusion and, I don't know, lack of awareness and lack of direction and everything that came after to be very present. So it's just a strange, it's a realization. Yeah. And I still said, I say now, like my social media is about finding me, finding what makes me work and things like that without being a competitive bodybuilder. Because essentially I don't want to go back there.
Yeah.
But I love the mindset and the clarity of thought and just how sharp a lot of my personality was at that time.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I can recreate that, but without that.
Yeah, without the identity, without the extra baggage, just finding those aspects, cultivating those aspects that served you without getting caught up in all of the other stuff. That shift then, so you're a professional bodybuilder. Was that a big shift in training for you?
Yeah. Like again, structure, right? Structure and regimentation of the routine. I was going in there and doing specific things all the time. And let's be honest, bodybuilding, we push things forward and let it come back, or we lift things up and lower it. It's very like, it's not multidimensional. It's not complicated. It's pushing things in certain directions and with heavy weight. What I needed to do now was, okay, the old Gladiators back in the day used to watch Hunter and like Shadow and all these guys do all these different things, whether it was dual, which is obviously a strength game, but still requires rotation and mobility, or powerball, like a rugby game. Like, when was the last time I ran?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
All sort of nested in endurance as well, right?
Yeah. So what I actually did, which I think was a mistake in the first part, and I learned from it, was I kind of ditched off all the loading exercises and strength training and swapped them for functional exercises. I remember joining the CrossFit gym, and everyone was like, "Are you mad? Like CrossFit, what are you doing?" But my view was, okay, we need to be more functional and flexible and move in different directions and run and do all these things. I thought CrossFit's brilliant because it's a multi-purpose sport. Obviously got injured.
Yeah. Okay.
And with regards to the, like, I wanted to come away from like squatting and deadlifts and things like that because I had pre-existing injuries from bodybuilding and being tall as well, always suffered from lower back injuries. So I thought, okay, I don't have to squat or deadlift anymore and the back's going to get better. But what eventually happened is I lost muscle that was supporting that area, supporting the spine, and essentially making the injury better. And by not doing the exercise and losing muscle and losing body weight, they got worse.
Yeah. Is there any support with your training? Is there someone, for the Gladiators, the actual, you yourself from the production company, whoever it may be? Is there an eye on that, or are you kind of just left to your own devices there?
I'd say we're left to our own devices in terms of no one's with us, go through that training process whilst we're at home at our own gyms and stuff like that. But there's two guys that I'd love to give a mention to, actually, because they're great people. There's a guy called Stuart, and then there's a lady called Jen, who used to be on the former series on Sky One as Enigma, the Gladiator. Sure that was her name. Hope I've not got it wrong. But she's excellent, Jen Pacey. And they send us like things to do. Jen was always laughing at me because she was sending me mobility exercises and little changes of directions around cones and things like that. And she was like, if you do these, you're going to be excellent. And I was better. I wouldn't say excellent, but I was better. So they do give direction. But I think what you essentially need to do is understand your own body and understand your own limitations, because season 1 was great, but season 2, I wanted to bring a bit more versatility. I wanted to try different events. So I thought, okay, I might be able to do hang tough or the wall. So I spent a lot of time climbing, a lot of time doing pull-ups and improving the upper body strength. But when I went to training for season 2, I trained on that wall so hard that essentially I think that's what was the catalyst for snapping my bicep tendon. Because all through that training, we get 3 days of training before we do the arena like show. And all through that training, every time I climbed the wall, my forearm's just on fire. And I had like a mad tendonitis. I was like, oh, I've felt this before. But what do you do as a bodybuilder, or what do you do as like a business person in life? You go through that adversity and you go through the pain. It's like, nothing's going to beat me until it snaps. And it snapped in Powerball because obviously a Powerball is a rugby game, essentially. and the extension of the arm like this to tackle, but then the force of a 110-kilo man going at, 10 miles an hour or whatever, gone. That explosive
So that force with this end range of motion, right?
And me trying to resist the other way from all the wall climbing, I think, and all the strains on the tendons on the inside. Because when I had the operation, the surgeon was like, "We've made it work, but those tendons are really damaged. So whatever you've been doing, calm down."
Yeah. So it's not like and this is kind of just coming to me now, really, my own sort of intrigue here. It's not like as a group, you're similar to, say, a rugby team or a football team where you have set training times, you all train together. There's a professional there to help you understand, this is the best way to do hang tough. This is the best way to do the wall. You really are kind of left to figure that stuff out for yourself in a very similar way to the contenders in some way.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That's it. And I think each season that passes, the more knowledge you gain. And essentially like season 3, I came back and I'd snapped my bicep and I was like, well, no wall, no hang tough. And I think as a group, as a collective group, everyone's great across all the events. Essentially production want to add a nuance to each show. So they want people trying different things, but there's obviously a limit to that as well. And I think at first, season 1 and maybe 2, you want to try everything. You want to be that guy that's like, yeah, I'll do anything. So production's like, oh, we love it. But then I think season 3 and beyond that, as individuals, you practice looking after yourself a bit more, because if you get injured, then that's it. It's game over, not just for the show, but maybe for everything.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, isn't it? That when you're in that limelight, in that celebrity status kind of bubble, you can be gone very quick as well.
Do you think, kind of on the note of that training and kind of now I guess I'd never really thought about it before, sort of growing up with Gladiators, I've never thought about the fact that you are figuring out that yourselves much in the same way as the contenders do. You can go to a lot of CrossFit boxes, I would say, and find guys in that box who would have been a gladiator in the 90s, right? And they're now just training is just part of their life. Yeah. So do you think to be a gladiator now that the standard has to be higher?
I know exactly what you're saying. What I don't want to do is like bring the older show into like disrepute. But
let's say they were let's caveat this and say that you completely respect that they were as fit and as athletic as you are, but the contenders weren't.
yeah. I think so. But then against the contenders, I can remember some really, really great contenders. Eunice, she ended up being a gladiator herself. I always remember the guy Wesley Two Scoops as well, because he was just fantastic. But I'm sure there was like lots and lots of great athletes out there back then. But maybe because social media wasn't about, maybe it's harder to find them. I don't know. But I do get what you're saying, like things like CrossFit, the awareness from social media now, and the boom of fitness. There are definitely more great athletes out there than there was, I think. It's like on season 3, I think it was, we had a guy called Joe Fishburne, and he was a GB gymnast. Like a GB gymnast. Some of the guys are like going, well, I don't want to go against him on hang tough. Like what? Talk to production, like, what the hell are you doing?
Drawing short straws to see who's got to go,
So, and I think with one thing I would say now from the older series to the new one of my observations is the females have like up their game in terms of like the general fitness goer female, because I would say now there's a closer matchup between female contender and the female gladiator. Like that physicality difference is not quite there. Now, maybe that's a production thing. Maybe they can go out and find bigger girls. I don't know. But I think a lot of the contenders they're coming through are great athletes, and they're giving some of the female gladiators some great battles.
Yeah. Just the percentage of people is probably actually much more pronounced in a female audience, actually, because but the percentage of people who do take their training very seriously now is going to be much higher. And that aside, the access, like you say, the access and visibility of training information, like I'd imagine back in fact, I was watching a Vinnie Jones documentary, and he was a contender on an episode. And even just looking at Vinnie Jones, who in the 90s, people were like, he's a big guy. He looked like in his leotard. I was like, I just said to my partner, I was like, look how small he is. Compared to like what you're kind of conditioned to see now. So people now can say, I'm going to do Gladiators and go away and train for it, right? And have access to strength and conditioning information. Whereas imagine in the 90s, it's not hard to imagine an attitude of like, Well, I do five-a-side twice a week, so I'll probably be
Yeah.
be quite good at it. So
Yeah.
I don't envy what you were going through there, because
No.
some of them people probably took their training so seriously.
Oh, yeah.
And you were the test. Yeah.
We were the cup final, and I think essentially because of the old show, the nostalgia attached to it.
Mm.
If you watch that show as a kid and now you're a contender, like you were just watching that show as a kid, you don't think you're ever going to get that opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's like, right, okay. Especially with social media and TV and how everything works now, it's my chance to shine.
Yeah.
Millions of people are going to see me. They're thinking my social media following is going to go up.
Yeah.
I'm going to be able to leave my job and earn all this money doing like meetings and whatever. I don't know. But,
Signings.
yeah, they take it seriously.
Yeah. And also probably sort of brainwashed and conditioned and indoctrinated from sitting in a living room with your dad in the 90s going,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's easy, I could do that."
Yeah. But it's funny because I remember speaking to production a few times on contenders that came through and they perhaps wasn't very vocal on camera.
Mm.
And I'm like, I know you cast people that are great on camera and give it the big one. So what's going off in it? I think it's just pressure. Like once you do get in front of that audience and you think, wow, I'm here.
Yeah.
You can either sink or swim.
Do the production team proactively seek out contenders, as in they will look and be like, this guy would be a good contender?
I think you have auditions.
Yeah.
So you're invited to an audition. I think
Yeah.
they get like thousands of applications and they run auditions up and down the country. So they got a nice group to pick from, I'm sure.
Yeah, very, very sure. So if you wouldn't mind, can you tell us a little bit kind of like when and how that chapter of your life came to a close?
Yeah, sure. So where do I start? I think season 1, 2, and 3, again, with the whole transition from bodybuilding, fantastic opportunity, loved it. And if I could still be a gladiator, I'd still be a gladiator now, because it's definitely been one of the pinnacle parts of my life, and in terms of enjoyment and just sheer fun. But I guess I've always been somebody that wants to help people, and the ability to help people with that kind of bandwidth on that platform, whether it's talking about training or I've been speaking recently on like ADHD and mental health. I think being on a show like that, it gets you an audience that are prepared to listen. And even if with like children as a parent, setting a positive example as a role model, because the younger generation have got it tough, I think, with social media and lots more pressures than I had as a youngster. I just love being part of it. But there was an element of restriction that I wasn't quite happy with as well. So being able to say what I want to say, and sometimes how I wanted to say it as well. Like I was told, I won't speak for anyone else, when you're on your social media, everything you say needs to be kind of spoken as if you were talking to an 8-year-old. I'm like, 8-year-olds aren't on social media. Well, they shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be, right?
Shouldn't be. And if I want to say the odd swear words to emphasize a point, or sometimes I think it's okay. Sometimes I think it's worrying. Like I'm an adult. I'm 40 years old. So there were just little restrictions that kind of crept in. There was also obviously a lot of the pressure that was put on my prior relationship, that essentially that pressure and the confusion with my own identity and where I wanted to go in life, and a lot of things that led to the downfall of that. So I think like coming into season 4 this year, I was already overloaded with emotion and thinking, maybe it's time to call it a day. Maybe it's time that I need this extra freedom. But fast forward two months after me leaving my home, I met a girl in Liverpool who was doing the live tour. We ended up in a relationship. She had a job as an adult content creator. I knew from the start it perhaps wouldn't go down well with the BBC because of, what the BBC's like. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to think that might be a problem. And I think for a long time, I was just putting that to the back of my mind, because I was escaping from the trauma that I'd been through in my relationship and the leaving of bodybuilding. Because I think what I didn't mention as well is when I left bodybuilding for this amazing opportunity on Gladiators, I still felt a sense of resentment towards bodybuilding and leaving, because I didn't feel like I fulfilled what I wanted to. Like I wanted to get to Olympia and I never did. I wanted to win a pro show and I never did. But that was because I was taller and the guys that were beating me were shorter and more complete. But anyway, we go back to the conversation. All these feelings had kind of come to a head, and I wanted to escape all the issues that I'd not dealt with from the past, including leaving my relationship and like the trauma and the I never grieved that. I was in this situation now where it's just like I'm 40 years old. You're not telling me what to do.
Yeah. And just the flag, sorry, a perfectly normal thing to believe you can mentally compartmentalize between your work and your personal life.
Yeah.
That's for everyone else, for 99% of the planet, that's true, right? And I guess being in the public eye is where that then changes that, right?
Yeah.
Or at least it changes people's opinions on whether or not you can. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So my view at that time was it is a private relationship, and it's not Giant that's in this relationship. So why don't you just let me be Giant? And why don't you just let me be Jamie? You contracted for the show, and then you can get re-signed for the next show. That's how the contract works. So I wasn't in contract for the show. And essentially they'd gone away and spoken about it and said that we're not going to invite you back for season 4, but didn't really give any particular reason. But I think it's quite obvious the reason was because of the relationship. Was
there any conversations about that at all previously?
Yeah, we had conversations, like there was Zoom meetings and whatnot. With
so it's like it was on the table, right?
Yeah, it was on the table. They came to they became aware of my relationship, and they asked me if I wanted to make it public. And at the time, I said yes, that's the plan of a normal relationship. And they was asking how that would look, so I explained in terms of just wanting to be a normal couple. You go out for a meal, you tag your partner, etc. Like nothing more than that. And they said they'd come away from that meeting and tell me what happens next. And what happens next was, sorry, not coming back for season 4. And we've decided it's in the best interest of the show to essentially delete Giant.
Yeah. So it's pretty obvious, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't. Yeah. The assumption's not a massive.
No.
Not a massive assumption. How did you feel in that time?
I think again, in the very first instance, I was like, "F you." Like, this is going to be a great thing. Like, I'm going to now have the ability to do whatever it is I want to do, and I don't care. Tell myself I don't care. But essentially, what I've realised is I do care very much. Like, I'm gutted that I'm not on the show anymore.
Yeah.
It's just really upsetting. But I do feel as though, and I've always been the guy that sees the glass half full. And we go through tough things in life, but everything makes sense in the end. Like, everything happens for a reason. And I do think through like pain and suffering comes something even better. So although I'm waiting to see what that is, I'm feeling very positive about the situation. Like, I want to speak about men's health and men's hormones. I want to discuss testosterone use and how that can be essentially healthy for some people. Those things I wasn't really allowed to talk on because of the stigma of me and my old line of work being a bodybuilder and steroids and the link into that, and then the message to children. But my feeling is there's big problems in the world at the minute, and one of them is children at a young age have a lot of access, but perhaps not a lot of the right information. So if I can help my audience and help the younger generation make informed decisions on things that are very easy to get drawn into, then why would I not do that?
Yeah. And by that, do you mean kind of, are you talking specifically about sort of steroid culture in gyms, that sort of thing? That's really interesting. I want to sort of tie these 2 points together here. So there was some press hoopla a few years ago around that, as you say, your background in bodybuilding, and you'd spoken openly about steroid usage previously, right? And you, through that period of those things, I say come into light, but it's like, it's on your social media, it's clear for everyone to see. Through that period, you remained on the show.
Well, this is a thing. And another point to mention that I've not mentioned yet is the media. As you throw yourself in the public eye, you are in the fight. And that means that they can print whatever they want about you, sometimes not factual either. So the headline was, I think, something like, BBC in dismay over Giant steroid scandal. When you read the article, it said in there, the BBC were already aware. It was a conversation that they had before signing Giant as a gladiator. It was what he did in the past. He doesn't do it anymore, and it's fine. So they actually wrote that in the article. So there was no that tagline that they give to hook people in. Entirely false, fabricated. And that's why recently I've been going on my social media and saying that, you know, speculation. I don't feel that the media should be allowed to create stories on pure speculation alone, or at least make that title and what's underneath it completely unrelated.
Yeah, it should be held to. Yeah, it should be held to account. I say they and we should be held to task and to account on headline, like specifically, very specifically on headlines. But one thing I do want to just flag here, though, that I find very interesting is where the BBC, or where you would be led to believe the BBC drew the line. Like that they did. There was seemingly no major issue with that. You were on the show.
Yep.
But what you were doing in your personal life and your relationship, and the being in a relationship with someone who makes adult content was a bridge too far. I find that very fascinating from how I think it says a lot about what the BBC or the producers involved believe makes a good role model and what doesn't. Yeah. I find that endlessly fascinating.
I think I'm in the same kind of like vein as you, but we're trying to maybe think for them is the whole, I was given the word child safeguarding a lot. That's like a broad term, and I don't want to be brought into disrepute over child safeguarding in some mechanisms, but protecting children, well, my view is you protect children as a parent. Like as a parent, you advise your children on social media usage. You can put like blockers on there and filters and whatever else. But it's also your job as a parent to speak to them about nutrition and training and mindset and just basically growing up in the world of today.
Ethics and morality, right? Yeah.
So I always said, and I stand by this, that I'm a good person. Now, there's some things that I reflect on and think I could have done better, but I think that's growth. And I think being able to essentially look inwards and look at yourself and realise some things and try and actively change those is the acts of a good person.
Yeah.
It's good morals. So you're exactly right in saying what's right and what's wrong. The lines are kind of blurry, but the links to adult content, they obviously see that as more of a serious talking point than steroids.
Yeah.
But again, in my eyes, like steroid is a huge, huge issue for the younger generation. So turn that from a negative story, Giant takes steroids, and turn it into a very positive story. Giant helps young kids make more informed decisions about their future choices because someone's got to. But essentially what I feel is everybody's too scared to do it because it might look bad.
Yeah. Because of public opinion.
Yeah.
But it's just so interesting that they decided the battle they're willing to fight or they're willing to field. So you mentioned this before and you've just sort of mentioned it there. What does it look like? What does educating the youth on steroid usage look like? And again, so easy to turn that into a negative headline, right?
Yeah,
but what does that look like, having these honest conversations?
I think it is an honest conversation. I think I can only draw on my own personal experiences. One of the things I did when I essentially left Gladiators or started this year is I thought, okay, if I have the freedom to speak on this kind of thing, how can I use my own experiences to make a point, and a valid point at that? So I started thinking about, okay, steroids basically make you infertile if you don't do certain things. And I took steroids for best part of 10 years. And I just wondered at 40 years old, where is my sperm count? Am I fertile? So I had a check in January and 0. Absolutely nothing. And that was definitely 100% down to steroid usage. I went on a fertility protocol for 3 months and had retest, and I got my sperm back. So, hooray, 40 years old, I'm fertile. But the point is, the steroids can essentially mean that you can't have children. And I think young kids, although it may be 16, 17, 18, they're not thinking about kids, and maybe they're not kind of forward thinking enough to even be bothered.
Yeah, well, I mean, your brain's not fully
Yeah.
developed, right? So, yeah.
I think it's important to stress the point that taking steroids is life changing.
Mm.
And I was in a professional sport like bodybuilding, so everybody does it. But I didn't do it until I was 24 years old, for one. Kids are going in the gym now, 16, 17-year-olds, and being offered it. I would like to speak on the benefits of bodybuilding from a mental standpoint: resilience, willpower, dedication, setting a routine, and just it's got so many benefits. You don't need to take anything. I mean, I remember when I was first training at 16, 17 with the person I mentioned, Ben. I thought he's getting strong quicker than I am. I said, "You taking anything?" He's like, no. And then about a month later, I heard him talking to a guy in the gym, and he says, "Yeah, I'm taking creatine." And I was like, cheating. But, essentially we looked at supplements back then as steroids.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have the access. We wasn't having the conversations. But now I think the conversations are happening more. Mm-hmm. And I think children have access to social media. And what's looking back at them is 16-year-old lad with abs, 16-year-old lad who's got a big bicep or a big tricep. And then they're perhaps looking at that correlation between them getting girls. Mm. So there's a lot of pressure on people to say, "Oh, how do I get there? And how do I get there as fast as I can?" And everybody's in a rush now, isn't it? It's like instant gratification. We're looking for admiration. We're looking for likes. We're looking for people to comment and follow. And if people see a shortcut without seemingly no risk, because people aren't going to discuss the risk with them, then they're going to take it.
Yeah. And there are far more people openly talking about steroid use now, right? On social media. Like it was sort of a fringe thing probably when we were younger, right? You had to be in you effectively had to be in a bodybuilding gym to even be exposed to it, right?
Sure.
Because to your point, if creatine was seen as a thing of like, oh, that's not natural, right? Which is crazy. But now there's literally like people on TikTok with like Tren in their, the name of a steroid in their name. Like, so kids, we've got like this powder keg of, if I'm just going to speak completely freely here, horny 16-year-old boys who are like, or feel the pressure to look a certain way because they're going to get this, this outcome that most 16-year-old boys are after. Mm. And here's this thing that can get you there quicker. Your brain isn't fully developed. Like you don't even think about tomorrow at 16, do you? You're only really thinking about one thing. It's just a powder keg, isn't it? Of obviously they're going to do that. Yeah. And there's no safeguarding to your, it's kind of to the BVC's point. There's no safeguarding, and there's not really anyone there like yourself who's further along the line to say, these are the consequences. I think there's lots of people saying these are the consequences. There's lots of people saying this thing's dangerous. Yeah. But you're kind of looking at it from the point of view of actually some of these people are going to do this thing anyway. Yeah. So how do we arm them with information that's going to be preventative?
Well, you make a great point as well. Safeguarding. Okay. Safeguarding from protecting them, so you kind of trying to delete stuff so they don't see it, or safeguarding from providing information.
Yeah. Counter information, supportive information. Yeah.
And I think we live in a world where there's so much information and misinformation. Why not provide the right information instead of trying to skirt around or delete the subject matter?
Yeah. Pandora's box is open, isn't it, at this point? Yeah. So, how are we dealing with it?
It's a difficult one. And I know, like you said, people are going to look at that and think, oh, not sure. Yeah. But I'm sure there's a way in which we can open conversations. Yeah. Like I'd love to do some kind of documentary where I go to the local gym and I kind of showcase what it's like. And I speak to the younger generation and see hear from their voice the pressures of modern day society. Yeah. Because a lot of the times I speak to my son, but it's like, yeah, okay, whatever. It's hard to get out of them, but I'm sure there's kids out there that can maybe not speak to their dad, speak to someone else and be a bit more open.
What would your advice be to any fathers or mothers, parents who are in a situation now where they're genuinely concerned that their 16, 17, 18, whatever year-old son might be experimenting with steroids, abusing steroids, considering abusing steroids? They have that worry.
I think it starts with communication with your child, right? It takes honest and open conversations, and I hope they would have a relationship where they could have those conversations. Because my children know that when they talk to me, they're not going to be judged. And I've always been honest with them about everything I've done. So they knew about my career and what I did to get where I did. And that comes with a level of trust that it comes back the other way. I think if you're not having those conversations or don't feel like you can have that honesty, and you start maybe searching the room or checking their phone, then that's perhaps not the right recipe for them to see your point anyway.
Yeah.
But
they're going to be on the defensive.
Yeah.
Off, right?
It's definitely difficult because, you know, I'm not going to say charge down the local gym either and give the guy behind the desk a mouthful. But point them in the right direction. There's so many people like myself, like people who speak on motivation. There's going to be somebody in their local community or family member that they trust that can have that conversation with them. And I would just say start the conversation and make sure they're aware of the drawbacks and the negatives, and make sure they contemplate their life decisions even though they're young and think about the future. Because hormonally, until you're like early 20s, like you say, testosterone, which is what you need to build muscle, is firing on all cylinders. What they really need to be concentrating on is how to eat, their routine, waking up at a good time, trying to lower stress, sleep quality. Maybe they're taking it that seriously. They're even thinking about recovery and getting massage and saunas and all this kind of stuff. So before you delve into that, which is a very, very small part of it, and it's not really going to do you any favors unless the other things are in place, focus on bodybuilding, and the parents can perhaps understand of what that encompasses and what you need to get good at before you even think about doing that.
Yeah. So you think for parents whose kids are kind of in that world, understanding bodybuilding, training in general is a good way to open that conversation. Yeah. What can any parents who are worried and they don't want to go search in the room and they don't also want to, you know, be accusatory, what can they look out for? If you're genuinely worried that I think my son might be dabbling in the dark arts, what are some of the telltale signs to look out for before they even start that conversation?
Yeah, I think big traps. You've got a lot of receptors in your traps and your shoulders. Yeah.
Sounding worried about the size of your traps. Where's your neck gone?
Yeah. I think you can't even say. You can't.
This is serious.
No, you can't even say like extra aggression because kids these days, like I say, younger men have testosterone in their system. So testosterone is what heightens your emotions, what gives you sex drive, and you know, it's that the male-blooded part of you. What taking testosterone does is it can amplify those things, but they're at an age in their life where they can be going through hormonal changes anyway naturally. So you're not really going to tell anything from that, I wouldn't say.
I guess if the top line is testosterone makes you behave like a teenage boy, then it's hard to spot in a teenage boy, right? So what are some of the other sort of giveaways?
I would say quick changes in their physique, which can come out of the blue. Like, he's been training 3 years. He's been going to the gym with Charlie 3 years, but all of a sudden he just got bigger, and I can tell, or he's got more confident and he's showing it off. I think those kind of things, personality changes, like this kid's just gone from being an introvert to a bit more of an extrovert and more confidence, and it's at a time when he's going to the gym and he's perhaps going to the gym more often. That's where you can probably open up a conversation about it. I would say the rate of change can be there if you're like really committed, but I think if I remember back, there's a distinct change quite quickly where you might start getting rounder shoulders or bigger traps.
So it's all in a trap. So parents just keep an eye on them, right? Yeah.
Yeah, just keep an eye on the coatings.
For let's say in the last 5 minutes here, you're a dad, you're listening, and you suspect that your son, or you've had a conversation with your son, and let's say he's no longer a child, they're 21, 22, and legally a man, and you know that they're considering this, you know, through conversation, whatever it is, that anabolic steroids, peptides, whatever it is now, are on their mind. What would your message be to those young men that dads could play in the next couple of minutes? What would you say to those young men?
I would say, unless at that point in your life you are 1000% certain that you want to be a professional bodybuilder.
And you really do think that's the cutoff point? Like, don't take steroids if you're not going to be a professional bodybuilder?
Yeah, for sure. unless it's like later life, unless you've had children and you might be in your late 30s and things start to slow down, and you, like you say, you've got that brain capacity and ability to form opinions off a lot of prior knowledge and conversations. But I would still say that unless you're bodybuilding, what is the need for steroids? Like, you can create a great physique off doing all the things right, of getting your food right, of getting your routine right. Like I say again, about getting your sleep right and your stress levels, managing that. There's so many things that you can do to improve your physique, get leaner, and get the same benefits from it with the mindset and the resilience and the willpower. And what bodybuilding and getting good at those things and generating those parts of your character does is it makes hard situations in life easier.
Jamie, thank you so much for joining me today, mate. I massively
Pleasure.
appreciate it. Cheers.
Yeah.